ladies and gentlemen, a warm applause for Claus Sendlinger.
Hi, Robin.
Hi, Claus.
Hello.
How are you doing?
Thank you.
Take a seat, please. So we decided to make this an interview, quite casual and relaxed.
Yes.
There's some water even.
Thank you very much.
So if we will be talking very much, which is the whole idea, then we grab a water.
Cheers.
As I said, we met 10 years ago. At that moment, I was in Berlin for Design Hotels to do a talk. You invited me. Now we invited you at our event. First question that comes to mind for a guy in hospitality: how did you eat last night, and how and where did you sleep?
Yeah, are you referring to what Schrager said 20 years ago?
No.
What
did he say?
Ian was always saying, "You are where you stay." Yeah. I think, to translate this maybe in our times, the right question would, how did you come, by train or by plane? No, I'm staying at the Sir Albert, which is a member of Design Hotels. And then we had this beautiful dinner in this former chapel, which I think was a great reference to, I think, what we're going to talk about now. It was beautiful.
And the hotel was okay?
And the hotel was okay, yeah.
Still a valid member of Design Hotels.
It's still a valid member of Design Hotels. If you look at the hotel scene in Amsterdam, there have been definitely, other fresh properties coming to the market. So there is a good choice you can make when you come to Amsterdam.
Good. You founded Design Hotels in 1993.
Yes.
And you have been its CEO for many years.
All of the time, yeah.
To market a specific kind of hotels. Why did you launch that label, Design Hotels, at that time?
I had no hotel background, yeah. So I was very young. I was 25 years old when I started an event company. And we were, on the one side, organizing big events for companies. On the other side, and that was where my heart was we organized raves. Yeah. So that was in the 80s when house music just, started to pick up. And with house music, a completely new youth culture happened. Yeah. In these days, I spend actually more time in Amsterdam than I have been spending recently, because Roxy was one of the best nightclubs in the world in these days, yeah, and Amsterdam was also one of the meccas for this whole new movement. Why am I saying this? I think in German we have this saying: when you're in the forest, you cannot see the forest full of trees. Yeah? And I felt that was the same in the hospitality and in the hotel industry. So the pros, they didn't see what was happening. Yeah, that with this new youth culture, there was a completely new demand for spaces as well. Yeah, and there were just a couple of people in the 80s, maybe Anushka Hempel first with the Blakes in London, and then Ian Schrager, Steve Rubel with Morgans in New York. Christina Ong with the Halkin, also in London, Grace Leo, Montalembert, Paris, and Adrian Seca, of course, in Asia with the beginning of the Amman Resort. So I connected the dots. I was seeing that the people especially the people from the music and the creative industries, which came a lot to our events, that they were looking for this kind of places. And then I realized that there was that was pre-internet, yeah, for those of you who remember. So I thought there is a good chance to create more like a guide, yeah. And so we started with publishing, yeah, before we went online, where we can bring these hotels together. And that was end of the 80s. It took me a couple of years to figure out what's a business model which is feasible. And 1993. We then had the idea that if we connect all of these hotels on a common platform, and also participate not only by helping them to communicate, also get a share of a transaction, you know. That was the right business model, and that was really then 1993 when Design Hotels was born. We started with the first 10 hotels.
How did you decide which hotels could be part of Design Hotels?
Well, in these days it was not so difficult because there were so few, yeah. And it was really more about the people. All of the people I just mentioned, they had a very holistic understanding, and except for Grace Leo, there was none of them came classically from hotels. Yeah, one came from nightclub, the other guys came from more gastronomy, the other people, Christina Ong from luxury fashion. You know, Adrian was a publisher. Yeah. So they entered into this market, and they went actually to the source of true hospitality, which was getting in these days a bit lost with the big brands rolling out their multiple brands around the world, and born out of an idea when you wanted to have a safe place when you travel, and you wanted to know exactly what you get, and it was all valid. But in the 90s, then it completely changed, and people were looking for much more. And we are overusing the word authenticity, but in these days it was a very relevant and a very strong word. So they were looking for the authentic places, yeah. And there was nothing new than what Cesar Ritz did 100 years ago. Yeah? So I think it was just a different package. What we did completely different to the rest of the industry was that I didn't believe in the star system. I always was looking for the experience, and an experience, even on a $99 place, if it's communicated honest and delivered in a good thing, makes me rather stay there than in a fake luxury hotel. Yeah? And this was what I think lots of people in the industry where I had to battle the most against. They were saying it's never going to work. Our industry only works on verticals, yeah, 3-star, 4-star, 5-star, and we were mixing hotels. We were neglecting stars, and we had them through all kind of price ranges, yeah. And I think it was the beginning of where the perception of luxury in general in the market also changed, and that design in these early 90s was kind of a code. Yeah? It was a code for people in the know, and they were able to read it. It was not the mainstream, it was just for the few selected, and because there was the few selected, the crowd you would meet in one of these hotels is most likely a crowd which has more in common than just the money on being able to spend on a luxury hotel.
So you've done this for about 25 years.
25 years, yeah.
I think you left Design Hotels 1 year ago.
December was. I left it as a CEO more than a year ago. My successor here, you will see Peter Cole, is going to give a talk this afternoon. And then I had an advisory role for last year, and now since December I'm out. Yeah.
And now you're starting a new enterprise. It's called SLOW, Sensitive, Local, Organic, Wise. You're setting that up with Peter Conrads. Tell us how SLOW is different from Design Hotels, and why now? So
I had through I think we all have our tough moments in life. So I had one of those, and I ended up on a beach in Mexico. And what was planned to be a sabbatical turned into this 6-year adventure in the jungle. Yeah. But because I did build a very strong team in Design Hotels, I was able to run the company from the jungle. And the beauty and what was so different to our lives we all have in the cities is, and especially in our job, we're traveling. I've been traveling for 25 years, like 6 months a year. Yeah. So you're never really anywhere. Yeah. So you're going out and in and out and in, and then you go to this place and you see all of this, and by the time you come back to the office eats you up. Yeah. And this was dramatically different. So I had the chance to go to a city and really explore what's in the city. I was living it then more intense than I would have done before. But then when I came back to the beach, I had much more time to analyze and connect the dots and see why are these things, and always what fascinates me is socio-demographic changes. Yeah.
And which dots did you connect?
So and then I said, I really love to switch between the slow and fast life. Yeah, there is something to it, And if you lead in a way that everybody knows what he's doing, you can live a life like this. Yeah, and through this I was fascinated by slowness. Yeah, and started to do research about. Obviously the most known slow movement is the slow food movement. Yeah, but now you see it kind of throughout all industries are are impacted by it. So I was fascinated by this, and I said, at one point maybe I wanna do something like this, yeah. And then I don't want to consult. I don't want to advise others. I want to really build the places for myself, and also own the real estate, yeah. Because the business model is a dramatically different business model,
How is it different?
Well, Design Hotels was a license-based model, yeah. So the hotels became members. They paid an annual marketing fee or a license fee. They could choose out of different marketing tools, depending on their size, their needs, their location, their life cycle. Yeah? And then on top of that was a transaction-based for all the reservations which were made through the different channels which we offered the management. Now it's really finding property, yeah? Investing in real estate, and building for purpose. Yeah? So that something in Tulum is different than something in Ibiza, and this is different than something in Lisbon or something in Berlin or where it is. And this is what we are starting now. So there are 2 properties at the moment which are active. Yeah. One is one which we started 5 years ago. Yeah.
That's in Tulum, in Mexico?
That's a farm. So
in Ibiza.
That's a farm in Ibiza. So I was always thinking that with how, excuse my English, how fucked up our food chain is, yeah, that there is something around farming, yeah, and I had the feeling that the farm can be the golf course of the 21st century, by not only bringing people together with the right resources, but bringing people together with the right mindset, yeah. And but I didn't go out. I was not looking or calling a real estate agent and say, can you find me a farm? This farm then just came to me. Yeah? Like most of these things,
How do farms come to people?
They came. Excuse me?
How do farms come to people?
So there was this Dutch guy who had this house in the center of Ibiza, and he wanted to build an art hotel, and he was applying for membership in design hotels. And then, I was in Ibiza just coincidentally, and I looked at the property, and I talked to him, and I said, why would you do an art hotel? Yeah, especially where is your art competence? Yeah, there are so many art hotels which nobody needs. Yeah, and this is such a beautiful old historic farm, but there was nothing there. It was overgrown with pine and so on. So. And then, long story short, we made a design hotels project out of this, which we did in Tulum and we did in Mykonos, and we did it there. And I thought in the beginning, is it an oxymoron kind of to do a farm in Ibiza, where everybody is so hedonistic, it is just like party, party, party. But then when you dig deeper in, Ibiza was always a farm. An island was always a farm island. So and that was actually what fascinated the hippies. And this is when they arrived there. They were all living up in the hills, not in San Antonio, nor in Ibiza, nor in Playa de Embosa.
So the place still is operating as a farm?
So yes, so we activated then. So we were farming on 2 hectares, organic and biodynamic. And we used, our goal was to really bring a new aspect to Ibiza and bring, we called it the other side of Ibiza, or the old Ibiza, Camino. Yeah? And by size of property, legal constellation, location, it just didn't make any sense business-wise. Yeah? I mean, everybody said this is never going to work. Yeah? And then we did everything in a different way, and it was a huge experiment. So instead of doing Instagram, there was no Instagram, there was no Facebook, there was no social media. There was, we had, because we had some legal constraints, so we had to run it like a secret place, And then all of a sudden we realized that that's what people actually want. More and more people want justice.
No
they want to
Instagram.
they want to feel special, and they want to they want to hear from a friend, not necessarily see it on 10 cross links
they want to feel special. And can they participate in the farming?
So we have all kinds of programs. Yeah, I mean the farm. We're doing farm talks. We have farm sessions for children. We have our chefs work. It's not a classical cooking courses or so, but like our guests are always welcome to join in there and see what we're doing. Talk to the master farmer. Talk to the farmers. They can go and harvest. And they feel so good. Yeah. And in the back, while I'm talking, you see some of the pictures and the places they're very bare, yeah. But because sustainable farming is very expensive, yeah.
So how do you make that work from a business point of view?
So like I mean, even organic strawberries in Ibiza on the farmers market, they cost €3 or €4. But ours, if I make the math of how much I would charge on selling strawberries, I would need to charge €12. Yeah. So this makes no sense. Yeah. But it brings us back to what agriturismo was initially in the 50s created for, because that was when industrial farming started, and the small farmers, they were all kind of declining, and the governments, instead of just subsidizing them, gave them the chance on a lower rule set to rent rooms. That was the beginning of.
Do you subsidize the hotel?
So it's actually a very good.
It's profitable.
It's very profitable and it's a very good business because people are willing to spend the extra on the experience just to be on the farm.
People are willing to pay more for
the
authentic experience.
Yes.
So it's a super interesting story, but for me it's rather puzzling that you have been an advocate for design for 25 years, and design is all about multiplication. It's about industrial processes. It's about perfection. But
I think this is a view from inside the industry.
Yes.
I never looked at it like that.
No, but that's at the core of design. Design is a service, and if you translate that to products like these, for instance, it is all about the big scale and industrial processes. While now you seem to be in favor of the exact opposite. So, in fact, you seem to be in favor of craftsmanship, of products and places with patina, in one-offs. So, how did that happen?
You're right, yeah. But like again, what I wanted, for me, design was always kind of like I said, it was a code, yeah. It was an arrangement of something much more holistic, yeah. And this was also how we chose members to become Design Hotels members. We were looking at the owners, we were looking at, does the concept make sense with the building where it is and the design which is applied, yeah. What we're seeing at the moment is that design is all over the place, yeah. And we were saying this already 15 years ago. We said, you know what, the time where design is going to be a competitive advantage, they're already over. It's a minimum requirement. You build an ugly hotel, you better don't open, yeah. And what it all helped now is that we can choose between lots of much more beautiful hotels than we used to be. Yeah. On the other side, with every movement and with more and more and more, it's never always gonna go just better. It's just gonna get more, but not necessarily better. Yeah.
What is better in your definition? What is your definition of better?
I think the better is if when you go and really think about an experience you want to create for someone and harmonize it with the location where you are, yeah, and offer a fair value package around. That's why we're talking about purpose. Yeah. So I think the purpose has slipped off and has slipped out of the industry in a bit on the hospitality sector. And there is a fine line between lodging and hospitality. Yeah.
I think how is one different from the other?
I think lodging is like, I need a room, I need something, it needs to be clean, I need to be from A to B, and I get some food if I need some food, or a bar, or a mini bar, or whatever, when I want a snack at night, like that's for me lodging. I don't think it's hospitality. Yeah.
What is hospitality?
And I think there's 90% of what we see in the world as hotels is lodging, And hospitality for me is where you care, yeah, where you're generous, where you're happy, not because a sketchbook tells you to smile when you check someone in, but when you're, just happy. Yeah? You love this job. Yeah? And
why did the hospitality industry lose this? Because it feels very logical and human to behave like that. Why are hotel staff looking up how to behave from a sketchbook or a textbook? Why is a sign in a hotel telling me to improve my karma by leaving the towel on the floor by not leaving the towel on the floor because I don't want it to be washed?
Yeah, because the bigger these things get, the more rules are set, and the more rules are triggering through, and the more and the less individuality and creativity is there. That's what we always tried to keep in design hotels, and we were also, if there were hotels not complying with this, we were also not scared to say, okay, our contract expires, and that was it. So, but I think the general idea of you do something great in one place, yeah, and people love it, yeah, and people come to you and they say, why don't we do this in my place? I have a place, come to me, let's do this again. Yeah. And this is how all of these brands, and I have this followed for this 25 years with lots of brands, and then the business model become to grow your footprint, but not necessarily to improve the hospitality offering. Yeah. So, and if this is all driven by money, yeah, then, which is in many cases the fact, yeah, then I think it's fundamentally wrong, because fundamentally it should be around the product, and then the money is a result of it. Yeah.
So how can change improve their product? Can they?
No, what I mean is like on a seasonal property like in La Granja, there throughout the year you get phenomenal feedback, you're never perfect. Hospitality, you're never perfect. Because a Monday morning someone is on shift who maybe had a bad Sunday, and it's different than on Friday afternoon. Yeah. So that's the beauty, but that's also the challenge in this industry. Yeah. And it's very hard. It's not a chair. Yeah. And you make a quality check before he leaves the factory, and then it's out, and then it's up to the customer.
So it's not about the image. It's about the experience, but there are some hospitality designers in this space. What would be your message to them to improve the hospitality experience in the spaces that they are designing?
I think challenge your client, because challenge your client, yeah, because the developer, yeah, there are lots of developers who just, use trendy words, we are in an unfortunate situation that every good word becomes in light speed meaningless. There's a good word that's picked up in the internet. When we started design hotels, design was a term which was a code. It was for a certain kind of an industry, and it took 5 years until there was a German coffee chain called Chibo. Maybe you remember this, and then they had the design cups or whatever glued to their window displays. Then it took 5 years. Now the same thing will take 90 days. So if you look at all of the brands which are out there and you read their manifestos, they're all using the same words. But nobody's really, but they're these shelves, but there's not this meaning to it, because then you need to go there, you need to experience it. It's much better to understand and talk about the fact, but not the marketing term.
You work with designers and architects.
Yes.
So how do
I love to work with designers.
How do you brief them?
So we go for all of the places which we really. This was obvious, this Granja thing, because it was a farm. It was. But the guy who owned it, he called it Torres des Buscastells, because it's one of the few buildings which has this little tower which you see there in the whole of Ibiza, But it was so pretentious, Torres des Buscastells, And so my girlfriend is Spanish, so I asked her, what is the simplest name of a farm, And it's una granja, la granja, But when we were asking her mother, and she said, what, you want to charge 800 euros for a room and you're going to call it granja? A granja, you cannot do this, And I said, why don't we then positive surprise, let's go for that, So, and that's where we chose then Armin Fischer from 3 Meter, who we have worked on several other projects with him, and gave him this task to make this real farm style, And where Ibiza is all is white, and
but you say farm style. A farm is not a style, in my opinion.
Is it?
A farm is a farm, and it has a style of the proprietor.
Yes,
so
exactly.
The people who own the farm.
But there is a farm.
Isn't there a trap immediately that you are thinking in terms of style, and shouldn't you be thinking more about an authentic experience that is the result of what is happening at a particular place at a particular moment by particular people, instead of thinking about a style?
Yeah, but you were asking, how do I brief the architect?
Yes, that was the question before.
So how to brief the designer there? We just told them, look, we need, these walls are thick, The people are here when it's summer. It's going to get warmer and warmer on Ibiza as well, So we want to have them to find this cooling, quieting kind of atmosphere. And this alone is actually pretty much the opposite of what you see in most of the other Ibizencan agriturismos, because the owners of them, they spend, one winter they go to Marrakesh, and the other winter they go to Bali or to Goa or whatever, and then they're always inspired by their winter trips, and then they bring the stuff in, and that's why most of the fincas in Ibiza have this colorful kind of looking, but it's more like, there's no concept behind it. It's just like the owner is traveling around, and then they bring the stuff, and they like it, and they put it in. So we started it completely different, and we did exactly say that. So we want them to calm, we want the eyes to rest, we want them to be able to take a nap in the afternoon if they want to get out of the thing without necessarily an air condition. So that was and we wanted to have it very humble and kind of very simple. And we were very blessed that we found a farmer who has a phenomenal education and has been farming in the Hudson Valley and in California, and he got married to his husband and moved to Ibiza and had nothing to do, and we just were running into him, and it was like and then the farm was really driving it, but he was aesthetically so strong, yeah, that he was it was easy for him to translate what we did in interior into the farm, yeah. But every place is obviously completely different. So Tulum is a house where I used to live, yeah. It was an old hippie house, a bit influenced by Barragan, yeah. And we just kind of straightened it out and added another layer to it. So we're calling it a house of crafts, where we have artisans in residence, where we have our own ceramic oven, where we believe that the crafts, working with your hands and doing things, you know, is coming back. It's a kind of meditational exercise, you know. So this is really what we wanna do there in Tulum, where we build relationship between artisans from Oaxaca, artists and studios from Mexico City, and artisans from the Yucatan Peninsula, and build a platform for where international designers can come and learn the techniques from them in certain workshops. Yeah.
Could you say that design also needs to slow down in order to be more meaningful? I mean,
look, I think we all want to slow down. I don't think that this is a question. You know, I think this is just fact. Yeah. And I was looking at the farm this weekend. I live in Lisbon now, in the south of Lisbon, and I brought 2 Feng Shui masters, yeah, to walk the properties and see how many people the property can hold, what is the best way, where to do the entrance, where is the place for contemplation, where is the place for exchange, where is the place for dance. You know, we have a bigger picture idea for the whole place, and I wanted to make sure that we are not buying this thing and then we need to trick the land with all kinds of Feng Shui tricks to bring it into this calmness. I went there, I felt it. It felt like I was there like a year ago, and it just felt right, but I don't have the expertise. So we were bringing these people. What he was telling me was like that the next 20, so the Chinese in Feng Shui, they have like a calendar of 180 years, yeah, and divided in 25 years, and the next 25 years are dominated by fire. Yeah. And I think we can already all feel it. It's not just you know, our addiction to mobile devices. It's just like how politics goes and how the world goes in general, you know. So I believe, and I'm good friends with Lee Edelcourt, yeah. And she was, in her latest study, she was predicting the spiritual home, yeah. The fact that we need to unclutter, yeah. That we should question every decoration we make. Is it really needed? Or is it just more stuff, you know? You know, if nothing bad about going to a flea market and falling in love with a very special piece and bringing it home, yeah. But you know, I think this just like, okay, I need this and I need this and I need this, and
so your message to designers actually is do less.
So yes, I mean, do it more.
Do less.
Do it with
bring
purpose.
in less.
Yes, do it with purpose. Yeah. So, but you know, there is also, you know, there are billions of people which are not arrived on this stage of luxury which we are talking about now. Yeah, there is still, you know, so many developing countries, and these people, they want to have their chair and they want to have this and they want to have that. So what I'm talking for myself, and I think this is what I think you as a designer, you need to challenge your client, because you need to challenge him on who he wants to have in this place. And do it on different angles. You will see that very often they haven't finalized the thought. There's a little bit of too much of this and too much of this and too much of this. There are lots of people who don't like what we are doing, and it's fine, you know. as long as, you know, the images and the experience speak for the people who really appreciate this. Yeah. And we just have the feeling that there is a growing number, but it's still a niche, it's a small niche. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Klaus. I want to take the opportunity to open up to the audience. So I can imagine that you could have some questions for Klaus. There are some microphones next to you, so if you have a burning question, if you are a hotel designer, restaurant designer, or any designer yourself, or you operate a hotel or restaurant, I can imagine that you have a pressing question for Klaus. There's one there. Thank you. Microphone seems not to be working. Sorry about that. By the way, now I have you. The clock isn't working either.
Hey.
Hello. Okay. I'm not a hotel designer or in the hotel business. I'm actually a store developer. I'm a store designer. And I was very intrigued by your presentation because I did my master's thesis on slow shopping, which for which I did a whole research on the slow movement and the slow philosophy. And eventually what I got as a conclusion is that it's still not possible to have a slow strategy for all the brands and all the stores that are opening now. I am working at Karl Lagerfeld. We open stores, it is not slow at all. But I remember that during my presentation, one of the professors challenged me, and I think I didn't get my message through to him eventually, that he was telling me, you cannot say that slow shops don't exist at the moment or there are too few, because when I go to a Prada store, I sit down, they bring me a water or they bring me a tea and they bring me the scarf I want to try, I take my time, it's absolutely slow. And I was telling him, yes, your experience as a customer is slow, but do you ever wonder why on the scarf it's written made in India? Do you know what happened before you have that scarf around your neck? And what I was trying to get through is that in a slow shop, it's not only this experience of the customer that has to be slow, but the whole process of making the shop. So the designers, the architects, didn't have to have the sleepless nights to postpone that, to anticipate the opening 2 more months because Fashion Week is coming up, or the designers didn't have to do something faster, or they didn't pay very few to kids to stay up and sew and everything. And I was wondering in your hotels, because clearly the customer is going to have a beautiful, slow experience. But do you have a slow approach also to your design process and to the constructions, or is it slow only for the customer experience?
Unfortunately, in Mexico, it's always too slow.
But
I arrived there.
Slow doesn't always mean in a slow pace. I mean more conscious.
Yeah. No, claro. I mean that goes without saying. You know, otherwise this whole thing would just be a joke. Yeah. I mean, from sustainable farming to the ceramic makers and the pottery makers, which we brought in, and the family who did build the oven and so on and so forth. Yeah, I mean, claro. But we're not experts in all of this stuff. Yeah, but we're the curators. So our culture team is looking for the experts, and then we bring the experts. And I believe this is where we need to go more and more, as by creating experiences. Yeah? So our new project in Berlin, we're building a campus. Yeah? And this campus consists out of different gastronomical experiences. There are 40 rooms to it. Yeah? But we're conceptualizing an academy for experience design, where we're currently looking and talking to international universities who possibly want to partner with us, because the intersection Yeah, I mean, hospitality will drive so much more than what we will all imagine today. Yeah, and I think in retail, I was in New York 2 weeks ago. I spoke to one of the major real estate owners in the city, and he said at the moment 30% of Manhattan's retail is empty. 30%. The city felt like that. I mean, in Soho, I have my 3-4 shops, which I always go when I'm there. Gone. Empty. Yeah. Trump adjusted the law, where now they can, the owner of the property can say, okay, I made $20,000 a month for this in rent. I can deduct it from my taxes. So the people they're not even interested in renting it out if they don't get the 20,000. It's stupid. Yeah. I mean, where are we? So, and I mean, it became the victim of the success of, like, on Amazon, if you can Prime, you can choose between 8 or 12 hours. Why would you go to shop? Yeah. So I think this to your earlier question, I think this man-made stuff, this unique, this one of a kind, this is coming back, and it's coming back with the oven, not just the piece. And I think we're going to sit there and we're going to do it.
But what does that mean for brands like Karl Lagerfeld? Because they will never work like that.
Yeah, I mean, this is maybe a bigger philosophical decision, but like we all cannot live on the space we live, because then we would need another 2 planets, and the fact is we don't have them. Okay? So we all need to look into new values. Yeah? And what is it how do we define ourselves and how do we define success? And I think we're at the verge where lots of people define success, or starting to define success by other means than by a Porsche and a car and the size of a house. Yeah? Where we all know none of that really makes us happy, except for the moment maybe we first drive it or have it or whatever. So I think there is a general tendency where we're going, and in that tendency there is a slowness plays a role, but there is also growth needs to redefine. Yeah? What is the new growth? I mean, the KPIs which we all use in our companies and Wall Street, they don't factor in the planet. Yeah? So it's not going to happen overnight, but I can feel that this is, like, in a way, it's much bigger than when I was 25 and I realized house music is going to be the next cool thing. But I believe we all want to learn about ourselves, yeah, and we all want to, personal development. I mean, learning is becoming a big new currency, yeah. And we want to build these spaces for this to happen. So, good interaction. I mean, you can see this space is a conversion. Yeah, it was not built for this purpose. Yeah, and in real estate, obviously, every bank is going to ask you if your project is not going to work, what you're going to use it for. Yeah, so in the center of our place in Berlin, we're building a sacral building, which is inspired by churches and temples, but with an architect from Austria. Yeah. And the business model for the place is a conference room. Yeah? So for the bank, we had to say it's a conference room. Yeah? To our community, what we're trying to do there is it's a community gathering place. It's where the concert is, where the meditation is going to happen, where the exchange is going to happen. But ideally also where companies can come, and by just walking into the space, you have this different kind of connection. Yeah? And this is what I think purpose buildings can achieve, and they shouldn't be too much compromised just because a bank is looking for a use if this idea is not going to work. And that's why we have so many mediocre places.
Thank you very much. I think that's a very nice last quote.
Thank you.
Sorry for not being able to have more questions to Claus, but I'm sure he will stay around.
I'm stay around. I'm here for the whole day.
Well, he's here for you to ask questions, to connect with.
It worked,
Sorry?
It worked.
So Claus, thank you very much for sharing
Dank.
your life vision
Thank you.
with us.